All right, the federal government now has two investigations underway in Ferguson, Missouri. It follows last month's deadly shooting of unarmed teenager Michael Brown by a police officer. This week, Attorney General Eric Holder launched an investigation into the Ferguson Police Department. It will look into everything from the use of deadly force to everyday police stops.
Now, I want to be clear. This is not a stopgap or a short-term solution. It's a long-term strategy founded on community policing that will provide a really detailed roadmap to build trust, to bolster public safety, to ensure accountability, and to change the way that law enforcement leaders make decisions, implement policies, and forge community partnerships.
Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson responded by saying there's nothing wrong with his department.
Do you think there's a problem with the department when it comes to civil rights?
No, I don't. I think that we've worked really hard to make sure that we treat everybody fairly. I think there's a segment of the community that is a little bit distrustful right now in light of some of the events of recent weeks.
Let's bring in our legal guys, Avery Friedman, a civil rights attorney and law professor in Cleveland. Good to see you. And Richard Herman, a New York criminal defense attorney and law professor, joining us from Las Vegas. Good to see you as well.
Hi, Fred.
Okay, so Avery, you first. How different are these DOJ investigations?
Well, these are very unusual investigations, Frederica. They are undertaken by the Special Investigations Section of the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, based in Washington. This Attorney General, Eric Holder, has undertaken about 20 of them, double the previous administration, and it involves not only excessive force, but race. It is a comprehensive investigation, and even though Chief Jackson said, well, we think we're fine, he's actually cooperating. Now, Americans know about these kind of investigations because you recall the Justice Department did something very similar to Joe Arpaio in Maricopa County. And he didn't cooperate. There were problems, and ultimately there was a federal court order monitoring the entire sheriff's department. That may or may not happen in Ferguson, but this is a civil matter, not a criminal matter, and it's going to take a number of months to complete the investigation.
So civil, not criminal, then,
right.
Richard, if the DOJ finds Michael Brown was a victim of police force with a history, of brutality or excessive force, would Ferguson, PD be prosecuted, or is that, or fined? What would ultimately happen potentially?
Okay, Fred, you have to break this thing down. Yeah. This new investigation is, as they're claiming, systemic police targeting of blacks. So Avery said it's civil. When law enforcement welcomes this investigation, don't expect anything substantive really to come out of this. You have a population of about 20,000. Of that population is predominantly all black. You have a police force of 53 with 49 white police officers who are trying to enforce crimes in the community. Who's getting arrested, poverty, who's committing the crimes, that's what's going on. It's a tough situation there to be in. But in addition to this new investigation, Fred, you have the federal criminal civil rights investigation for against police officer Darren Wilson. In addition to that, you have a state grand jury investigating and probably going to bring charges against the police officer at a minimum. And then you have a flurry of civil lawsuits against police officers for excessive force. All these investigations do is put the civil cases on hold because people have Fifth Amendment rights and they're not going to testify in those proceedings.
It's not going to hold up Justice Department. It's not going to hold up a pattern
again,
of
this
practice.
is a civil.
That case
this
is going
looking
forward.
But this is looking at procedures, and they're going to try to implement new procedures against excessive force. This could apply throughout the United States, and every police department implement procedures to avoid excessive force.
So it sounds like you're saying, Richard, these competing investigations does mean that there are not likely any quick rulings around the corner. This is something that could be drawn out for a very long time.
That's
so then I wonder,
months and months and months.
Yeah. So then I wonder, then Avery, since Eric Holder has already visited with Michael Brown's family, as the nation's top cop, top prosecutor,
which is
does that influence these investigations? Because he's the highest public figure in law enforcement, and while the family has been hurting, and he gave them sort of a public hug, does that also mean that it shows some bias from the Department of Justice?
Good point.
You know, I don't think so. I've considered General Holder an honorable, careful Attorney General when it comes to civil rights. I don't think he's creating false expectations, nor is it going to affect the grand jury, nor is it going to affect the criminal case. The Justice Department will bring a criminal case if you have, like, remember James Byrd, the guy that was dragged in Texas? Remember that case? That's a criminal case. This is strictly civil. Pattern and practice, it takes 6 months to a year. No one's talked about that. So I think the way it's being handled is absolutely proper and absolutely correct.
And Richard, last
Fred,
word on that, you do see bias?
Yeah, I think it was absolutely wrong of him to make that personal visit while there was a federal criminal civil rights investigation pending. I think he should have let the district attorney's office handle it by the state and the town. He came out there before this civil DOJ investigation. I think it was wrong. I think it sends a wrong message here. Let the system work. Let the system take place. You've got a grand jury. Let's see if there's an indictment here, first of all. And I don't believe they're ever going to be able to prove a criminal civil rights claim against the police officer.
Okay. All right, Richard and Avery, stick around. There's more. I want to ask you about the case of this young mother, you know, who is now planning to sue police after she was pulled over and put in handcuffs, and her 6-year-old son walked towards officers with his hands up, as you see right there. Oh, my goodness, these pictures are extraordinary, but I want to ask you more about where this case goes. We'll be right back.